Hello, everyone. I'm Henrik Nolmark, Director of the Volvo Research and Educational Foundations, or VREF, as we say in brief. And it's so nice today. I'm really, really proud, happy, delighted, and pleased indeed to welcome you to the official launching of the Walking Cities Lab, the international research program within our Walking as a Mode of Transport program. And you will hear more about that in a minute, but I'll just give you some background and context to this initiative, where it sits in the VREF portfolio and why we are here from our point of view. And then Daniel Oviedo and the consortium team will give you a lot more of the content and background and the consortium. So you will also meet consortium members, and you will learn about the Walking Cities Lab, and you will also have some time for interaction. So already now, please use the chat. So just a few words about VREF, Volvo Research and Educational Foundations. As I quite often start my speeches by clarifying that we are not the Volvo company. We are part of the Volvo family, but important to say we're not at all part of any of the commercial side of Volvo. It's an independent legal entity separate from the Volvo Group and the Volvo Cars Group. So according to Swedish law, we are a philanthropic foundation, so tax exempt, and that means we have to work for the public good. We can't do anything which is commercially viable or beneficial for the Volvo company or any other private company. So all our processes are transparent. All the results will be published. And yeah, having said that, I think we can then also give you a bit of context to this initiative. VREF has been around with the Future Urban Transport Program for 25 years by now. Initiatives come and go. We have, since 2022, 3 overriding research programs. The oldest one is called Mobility and Access in African Cities. Then came the Walking as a Mode of Transport program. That's where we are today, focusing. And then the third one is Informal and Shared Mobility in Low and Middle Income countries. Those are the 3 cornerstones. And within the Walking as a Mode of Transport program, we started with preparatory work. Some of you who did the preparatory work are here today. I think you're quite happy to see the outcomes of your contributions back in 2020 and 2021. I think 2022, there were some reports. And then we started off by having a couple or 3 calls for so-called exploratory research projects. So we have by now 20, I think, exploratory research projects, which most of them are finalized. So there's quite a lot of learning and knowledge produced in those projects. As in the preparatory reports, we have also financed some some special studies, and events, workshops, research workshops, and other types of events. So about 1.5 years ago, we were looking at where we were in the program, in the walking program, and we thought, well, it's now time to go from this great variety of smaller exploratory projects to something more long-term and more focused. So that's when we invited, we had this invitation to propose a so-called VREF International Research Program on walking as mode of transport. So that was in the later part of, I think it was 2025 or early 2026. Anyway, we received 60 expressions of interest, 60. That was quite almost a shocking amount of, and hundreds of people engaged in those. So almost everybody that we expected and a few others were involved. Out of that came the second step, where we invited a much smaller number to submit full proposals. and which then were thoroughly reviewed by international experts and by the VREF Scientific Council. And then late 2025, the VREF board decided to support and finance the Walking Cities Lab for 4 years, 2026 to 2029. So it was really a competitive process. And so now we are here. We already had a sort of internal kickoff meeting between VREF and the representatives from the Walking Cities Lab. And after that, we are all kinds of discussions on how to contract this and how to place this at UCL and etc. etc. But we also have been very pleased to see real knowledge building and communication work getting started already, and I think we will hear more about that. We will hear more on why you took the initiative to submit the proposal and what you want to do with the Walking Cities Lab. So with that, I hand over to, being a bit ceremonial here, Dr. Daniel Oviedo. Very welcome. I hand over to you, Daniel, to give us your background, and so we will learn more about the Walking Cities Lab. Thank you, and very welcome, everyone.
Thank you, Henrik, and welcome everyone, and thank you for being with us. Greetings from not too sunny Bogota, where it's currently raining. So I traded one gray sky for another. Actually, London was sunnier than it is here today now. So I'm Daniel Oviedo, and I'm delighted to be here with you and with the rest of the team from the Walking Cities Lab, presenting a bit of what we plan to do for the next 4 years as part of our international research program. A little bit of background about myself, and I'm going to be calling to some of my colleagues who are part of what is now a 30 plus institution network with many more researchers as part of this international research program. So I'm a civil engineer by training, born, raised, and initially trained in Bogota, in Colombia. PhD in development planning, and I am an associate professor at the Barclay Development Planning Unit of UCL, and I have the privilege of being the lead of the consortium for the Walking Cities Lab, which we are going to tell you about in a moment. So the first thing I want to do is to say that we have a decentralized leadership, and I'm going to be joined by some of my colleagues in this conversation, who I'm going to introduce in turn, and I'm going to let them say a couple of words about themselves while we start. But for now, let me share with you our new image. So same name, new image. Some of you might know us already by the name of Walking Cities Lab, which I think gives a good sense of continuity in terms of this is something that continues, but at the same time has been transformed. So you see that we have now a new logo with different patterns that represent our 4 global regions, and I'm going to tell you a bit more about that. We are the International Research Program Walking for Transport, and I'm going also to tell you a bit what Walking for Transport means, initiated and funded by VREF. And our motto, our ethos, and our aim is make walking a global priority. So that's where we're starting from. I have only a handful of logos here, which are the logos of our work package leads. But as I said earlier, we have a very decentralized leadership. So what is walking for transport? Is walking that is accessible, safe, and enjoyable for all. And the reason that we are coining this W4T theme is because what we're trying to do is to sort of rethink walking in different ways, obviously based from research and our work in different contexts. So we view walking for transport as a complex urban system that is integral to urban climate resilience, equity, governance, and low carbon transitions. So what this means is that it is a central and non-negotiable component of urban life, and it serves as a great lens for recalibrating urban knowledge and practice. So we're seeing, yes, walking as a mode of transport, but also walking as an instrument of transformation. And what we want to do is to turn this definition of W4T, or working for transport, as a coherent field of inquiry and action. So not just knowledge, but knowledge that is applicable, knowledge that is useful, and knowledge that is taken forward, both in research and in practice. So, as I mentioned, the Walking Cities Lab, or WCL for short, is a global hub for research, capacity building, and evidence-based action. And we are dedicating ourselves, and we're going to be working for the next 4 years on advancing walking as a key mode of transport, and have this consolidation of W4T as part of this field of inquiry and action. That's not to ignore the fact, as Henrik was saying at the beginning, that there is a lot of work already done in walking as a mode of transport. Much more recently, obviously, so the past few years have seen an enormous increase in the amount of scholarship and the amount of work from practice on walking as a mode of transport, and we're building on that knowledge to make our proposal. So to really add value to what is out there at the moment, and especially to build upon what the walking program from VREF has done so far through all of these 20 plus exploratory research projects, some of which were developed by the Walking Cities Lab team as we used to be up to a few months ago. What we want to do is to fill critical knowledge gaps regarding the links between walking and climate resilience, equity, and governance, and to establish a holistic, that is theoretically robust, evidence-based, action-oriented framework, which is very important, to hopefully evolve into a self-sustaining international center of excellence that tries beyond this initial funding period, obviously always hand in hand with VREF, our funders, and the various partners that have joined, and I'm sure that will continue to join the Walking Cities Lab. So I spoke about the amount of work that is out there already, and please feel free to comment and share your thoughts about what we're doing in the chat, and later on when we have a moment to speak openly, as much as time allows. But from our initial review and in the preparation of our proposal, we identified 4 themes, which are what we're going to be using as lenses to explore walking. The first, which is something that we have been working for some time already, especially in the context of Sub-Saharan Africa and in some cities in the Global South, is the idea of the unwalkable continuum in our cities. And that means not only the material conditions that make a city walkable, or the lack thereof that make them unwalkable, but actually all of those contexts which remain unwalked. Yeah, and the choice of not to walk, paired with the imposition of having to walk, is something that we want to look at here through this lens in various contexts. The next, which is very important, is the links between walking and climate resilience. And I'm going to expand on each of these themes in a moment. But we identified that although the climate conversation is a very strong sort of area for inquiry and dialogue, walking hasn't featured so prominently there. So we feel that there is something to be explored there. The third is caring cities, and what's the role of walking within building and sustaining caring cities. The fourth, which is something structural, is the governance, but what's the role of walking, or what's the position of walking in urban governance? And the fifth one, which is something that also builds from some of the research that we have been developing before within the broader consortium, tells us that implementation pathways are sort of that missing piece in the current state of the art and the knowledge that we have about walking as a mode of transport. So for theme 1, we want to move beyond walkability. I think I'm preaching to the choir here, and there are many experts. We have over 114 participants at the moment, plus many more registrants, who I'm sure have at some point engaged with the idea of walkability and walkability indices, which tend to be metrics, particularly in the physical realm, to reveal how walkable or not is an environment. No? So we want to move beyond that and start incorporating the structural and social determinants that shape how different populations walk, on the one hand by necessity or by choice, or decide not to walk altogether. So we're going to focus, yes, on the material side, but also on the lived experience, recognition of informal infrastructures, both physical and social, as well as the social determinants of walkable and unwalkable cities. Our next theme of walking resilience, what we want to do is to redefine walking infrastructure as a critical tool for urban adaptation and finding ways of protecting people from extreme weather rather than just sort of taking the um, sort of more generalized approach of seeing walking as a way of reducing emissions. And here we want to focus on heat stress mitigation, flood resilience, and protective infrastructure, among many other issues, which are, of course, all connected with our theme of urban governance. For caring cities, we are operationalizing care in transport planning to support the complex and non-linear mobility patterns of caregivers, which we know are being increasingly recognized. And caregivers tend to be overwhelmingly women. So there is a very strong gender and intersectional lens that is embedded into this idea of the caring cities, but also protecting different groups who remain at the margins and enable well-being for all. And caring cities need to go beyond just the notion of caregiving and care receiving, because especially in cities like the one I'm in at the moment, which is Bogota in Colombia, one of the biggest sort of challenges for walking is fear and fear of crime, and cities should protect their residents from these various hazards. So we're looking at caregiving mobilities, gender equity, and very important, and this is something that was coined and has been sort of pushed frequently by the likes of Lex Agaris, who is also part of our group, which speaks about violences in plural, and that might not be the best term in English, at least according to ChatGPT. But the truth is that there are many forms of violence, which include road violence, gender violence, and crime-related violence, among others. And actually, what we tend to call road safety is a form of violence. So, governance, which is we enter now into two themes that are transversal to everything. So, we want to identify the institutional levers required to move walking from what has so far been kind of a marginal policy concern to a core budgetary and regulatory mandate. So, we're going to be looking at the political economy, the institutional capacity, and ways for aligning different sectors of planning, policy, and decision making to sort of make walking a global priority. Our fifth theme is implementation. So we want to bridge the gap between policy and practice. And here we are sort of changing a little bit our hats from researchers to implementers, as we have done in other projects, to see what interventions are politically feasible, socially acceptable, and technically scalable. So in terms of walking public transport, the what's, the hows, the process and resources, and the whens, the times and stages. So we're looking at pilot testing, maintenance strategies, social acceptance, funding, which is very important in all conversations around walking, and pathways to scalability. So the way that we are operationalizing these 5 thematic objectives is through 3 pillars of action that run across all of our sites and themes. So the first pillar of action, which in a traditional research jargon we will call it a work package, is actionable knowledge. The next one, which is very close to VREF's mission, is next generation capacity building. And the third one, which is very important to really achieve our aim of making walking a global priority, and that has been in the work of over 3 decades for some of our partners, such as Walk 21, in sort of enabling and pushing for a dialogue around walking, is building communities of learning, and may I add, for practice around walking for transport. So the first work package, what we seek to do is to co-produce rigorous transdisciplinary evidence to bridge the gap between academic theory and urban reality. So not only evidence and research for the sake of research or for the number of publications and citations, but actually to have a coherent knowledge base that can be applied in practice and localized in different contexts. And this is important because as part of our ethos, we're also taking a decolonized approach to knowledge. So we also want implicitly within this work package to balance some of the inequalities and the sort of the political economy of knowledge, in which we see there is a overrepresentation from some regions in the world in the current discussions about walking, and that's maybe part of that sort of ability and drive to get more papers and more citations. But We want to have harmonized data protocols that can sort of be compared across Sub-Saharan Africa, Latin America, pan-Europe, and sort of the broader global north, and of course Asia. Have comparative diagnostics and have especially policy-ready tools. The next one, which is building the capacity for the next generation, we want to train a new cohort of diverse scholars and practitioners to ensure that this agenda working for transport outlasts the project funding cycle. So we're going to be focusing on mentorship, on MSc and PhD curricula, and practice-based fellowships, among other innovations that we're going to share in a moment. And then the third one, which is fostering these communities of learning. So we want to build, and here we're leaning heavily on the work of our partners and some of our predecessors, to have a self-sustaining global network to translate our findings into immediate advocacy and long-term policy change. So we want to connect researchers with policymakers, with practitioners, and the research itself to governance, to create and support global advocacy partnerships, which already are out there and are engaging very heavily with the various global, regional, and local fora, for where walking can have a place, which are most of them. And then having knowledge exchange, which is very important. So we cannot encompass every piece of research or the work of every researcher. Not we're aiming for doing that, but we want to connect it, we want to use it, and we want to be able to sort of have a community that recognizes, that acknowledges, that respects, and that uses the knowledge that we are producing across the broader network. To do that, we have a complex governance. So the funder and the initiator of this, as Henrik was introducing, and of course is the host of this event, is the Volvo Research and Educational Foundations, with UCL as the sort of institutional lead. So in UCL, we have quite a few departments. So you see that some of the logos are actually from departments within UCL, which include my own, the Development Planning Unit. So I am the consortium coordinator, well, the consortium lead, but I'm joined by a consortium coordinator who is Maria Jose Nieto, and she will introduce herself in a moment. And then each of our work packages have dual leadership. So we have colleagues for actionable knowledge. Maria Jose is going to be co-leading that with Tanu Priyaoting from Transportonomics Institute in Oslo. For next generation capacity, we have Clemens Cavoli from UCL Engineering, and Natalia Villamizar, who is joining us in the call from Newcastle University. And in the communities of learning, we have, I think, probably the best placed person institution, which is Jim Walker from Walk 21, who will have some very modest input from yours truly here for Work Package 3 and building communities of learning. But that's not all, because to make our aims a reality, we need the support and the strategic advice of those who have been working in research and practice for a long time in this issue of walking as a mode of transport. So we have a very broad advisory board that is currently sort of set up based on our existing partnerships, but we have already been approached by quite a few organizations, especially in the organized civil society, who want to join the advisory board. So we are considering that and looking into it as expanding as the project goes forward. But just to mention some of them, we have the Interlink network, which is led by Professor Karen Lucas in Manchester University. We have the World Resources Institute, who is both a co-investigator and at the global level, at the local level, a co-investigator, and at the global level, sort of an advisor for the broader work. We had CEDEOS and we had the Laboratorio de Cambio Social, which is Lake Sagaris. So I, Lake, if you're listening, I owe you a logo in this slide. Then we have Walk 21. So Jim is sort of doing Bron when Thornton, who is the CEO of Walk 21, is advising us as part of our advisory board. We're partnering with SlowCuts, with ICLEI, with the Inter-American Development Bank, with Architecture Without Borders, Spain, with the PRISM program, which is another of the international research programs that Henrik introduced earlier, UNEP, UN Habitats, and I think obviously VREF has a seat in our advisory board. So David Lindlow, who introduced himself in the chat, and he's on paternity leave, so he might be able to stay for the whole thing, hopefully. But if not, David will be representing VREF at our advisory board for that strategic support. And then we have thematic leads. So the science directions. So we have various colleagues in different parts of the world. So I introduced some of them. So Tanu, Maria Jose, Natalia, and Clemence. I want to introduce one more person who is Thaisa Comeli, who is an expert in climate resilience and is currently at the Bartlett School of Planning at UCL. And it's interesting when we were building this consortium to find that we are bringing a sort of a plethora of people from different contexts. And although institutionally we might be based in some of the sort of leading academic institutions in the global north, most of us are actually from the global south, and we have that sense and that sort of dual identity that is bringing the richness beyond the sort of academic rigor that we have for approaching each of our themes. Now, that's not all, because I mentioned that we have a very broad network of partnerships. So we have three ways of doing things. The first one, which is our long-term engagement, is the Living Labs. And here, credits where credits due. We're borrowing some of the very nice ideas that came from the PRISM program. And we are sort of mimicking some of that by establishing initially 4 Living Labs in each of the 4 global regions in which we want to work, which include Latin America and the Caribbean, Sub-Saharan Africa, South Asia, and the southern part of Europe. Which for Latin America, we're working in Brazil with Universidad Federal of Rio Grande do Sul and Universidad Federal of Minas Gerais, with Marcela Ardila in Minas Gerais, who is also one of the founding members of the Interlink chapter for Latin America, and Ana Margarita Larrañaga, who is one of the lead researchers on walking walkability in the Latin American region, who are going to be working between Belo Horizonte and Porto Alegre in Brazil. In Ghana, we are working with the University of Cape Coast, led by Regina Obilia Moako Saki, and I know I'm massacring your name, but please forgive me. But Regina is a long-term lead of this issue of walking, and she's going to be co-leading the Ghana Living Lab between Cape Coast and Accra. So in Accra, we have the University of Environment and Sustainable Development, where we have Louis Kusi Frimpong, who has been with us at the Walking Cities Lab in our previous incarnation from the beginning, and he's a dear friend and colleague. In India, we have an interesting partnership between academia and practice. So on the practice side, we have the World Resources Institute. So WRI India is going to be, which is based in Bangalore, is going to be driving some of our more practice-oriented engagement with intellectual leadership from CEPT University. So CEPT University in Ahmedabad and Rutul Joshi, who is going to be sort of leading on CEPT Universities and is going to be driving some of that research and capacity building agenda that has characterized CEPT for a very long time. And then this is one of the recent additions. We have another Living Lab in Europe, which is what we're trying to do was to sort of set up base, at least at the beginning, in the sort of non-usual suspects. So if you look at the walking literature, you're going to see lots of papers on sort of the northern part of Europe, including, of course, countries like Belgium, France, the UK, and so on. So, and obviously Sweden. So we wanted to do something different, and it's sort of starting looking at the Mediterranean and the southern part of Europe as our take into the global north. And then one recent addition. So we are setting up a Working for Transport Academy for Innovative Pedagogies and Engagement, which is going to be something that is a pilot at the moment, is going to run throughout the project and is going to be set up in Chile at a new center that was recently funded by the Chilean government, which is called CATLEC, and that's focused on logistics, urban planning, urban development, and the role of transport in sustainable and equitable economic development. And there we're led. I forgot to mention that at University of Malta, Professor Maria Tard, who many of you in the call know, is going to be the lead of the Malta Living Lab. And in our Walking for Transport Academy, we are led by Beatriz Mellalira, who is based at Universidad Andrés Bello. Now we have many other partners, and because funding is limited, resources are limited, but we had so much support, we have so many friends already, and we hope to make many more, that we found a way to sort of continuing what VREF has done in terms of the exploratory projects, which we are now calling in our ecosystem startup grants. And these are shorter term research initiatives, capacity building initiatives, and policy engagement initiatives in different parts of the world that help us sort of having a much broader breadth in our research, which needs to be consistent with the themes that I introduced earlier. So the way that we have designed the Walking Cities Lab is as a living ecosystem to ensure that our work is both deeply grounded in local context and globally scalable. So this is a bit of the cosmos of the Walking Cities Lab and the way that we are organizing ourselves. So we have at the Orbit our advisory board, who is going to keep an eye from above and seeing and helping us making decisions sort of on the strategic direction where things are going. We are coordinated by UCL. As I mentioned earlier, and then we have our 3 work packages of actionable knowledge, next generation capacity, and communities of learning, which are led in turn, as I mentioned, by 2 leads of some of the thematic leads. And then each of these are going to be working, you can see here, across the 5 themes, with our living labs as a sort of the spearhead to explore locally and regionally these various themes and become the anchor for a much broader community. So we are setting up our homes initially in Malta, Brazil, Ghana, and India to engage with a community of practice that is initially represented by our startup projects, our startup grants. In Europe, we have colleagues in Oslo. We're going to be working in Manchester and with civil society organizations such as MPEO in Valencia, in Spain. In Latin America, and you can see a little bit of the bias of the fact that I am Latin American myself. So my initial network was there. Many of the friends that I have worked with are there too. So we have, we couldn't leave out Colombia. Blame me if you must, but it was necessary. We're working with Universidad de los Andes, with Luis Guzmán, with Universidad del Norte, with Julian Arellana, who are doing something very interesting that is a startup project that is a bit more ambitious than some of the others, which are looking at 2 cities. In Santiago, we have the Laboratorio de Cambio Social, but we also have La Reconquista Peatonal with Karen Seaman, who is a well-known character in the VREF community. We have been working with IDB in the Caribbean region, in Nassau and Kingston, and there is already data that we want to use to sort of explore new ways of understanding walking for transport. And in Sao Paulo, Brazil, we have the Instituto de Caminabilidade, who has been working for a very long time on various issues around advocacy and research, applied research around walking, and they're looking at something very interesting in relation to governance across Brazil. In Sub-Saharan Africa, we have been in touch with quite a few people, including colleagues such as Chebe Polycap, who is now working with us on sort of a postdoctoral project proposal, and he started working in Kigali in Rwanda. We have our previous partners in the Walking Cities Lab who are doing quite a few interesting things in Freetown, so the Sierra Leone Urban Research Center, in Maputo, Arquitectura Sin Fronteras, and the Observatory for Mobility and Transport in Mozambique, in Nigeria, in Lagos, with the Lagos State University. And then for Asia, we're working with researchers in Singapore, our long-term partners in Japan, and more recent partners who are working in Manila, the Philippines, at the University of the Philippines, the Institute for Tourism, and Chulalongkorn University in Thailand, where I have also the privilege of being an honorary professor, and we have been working on sort of making the links between especially popular transport and walking, and as I mentioned earlier, our academy in Santiago. So very complex network, a very complex system, very ambitious. I'm sure that we will learn along the way. Some things might go according to plan, some others may not, but there you go. At least we have a very nice diagram to show you today. Now, just to articulate a bit the purpose of all of these elements, we have the urban living labs, which are going to give us the depth. for conducting deep situated action research, collected by local experts to address specific regional challenges and pilot long-term interventions. The startup grants give us the breadth, which is a diverse portfolio of agile projects deployed across different political and environmental contexts. What helps us is probing and testing different ways of approaching our imperatives locally, our 5 themes, and gather comparative insights in more than 10 global locations, as I mentioned earlier. And then we need to integrate all of this, which is going to be done both horizontally and vertically. So horizontally, we have our thematic leads, which are going to ensure that our 5 strategic objectives are applied consistently across our regions. And then vertically, we're going to synthesize outputs in each of the work packages or the work streams, our pillars of knowledge, capacity, and community. The advisory board is going to have a very active role, and this is not just for strategic advice, but also for strategic transformation. And perhaps that's the more important point, because they are going to enable entry points to new knowledge and opening pathways to upscaling knowledge into action. Now, I told you what we're doing. I told you our vision and where we're coming from a little bit. I told you who we are. And I told you how we're organized. Now, how we're going to work, because we have 4 years, we are building this incrementally. So year 1, which is where we are at the moment, we are at foundational discovery, which is building partnerships, mapping assets. Year 2 is activation, which is going to be co-designing interventions. And for interventions, we also mean our action research programs, our training programs, and our engagement programs, and articulating needs from various areas, both in knowledge and practice. Year 3 is for action and reflection, so implementing, evaluating what we're doing. And year 4 for legacy. So at the moment, we have 4 years guaranteed funding from VREF. So what we hope to do by year 4 is to upscale successful models and securing some level of policy change. That's organized in a very nice 8-step process, in which we start by what we're doing today, which is partnership building, both vertically and horizontally, locally, regionally, and globally. We're doing also asset and liability mapping, and I'm going to hand over to Maria Jose in a moment so she can tell you a bit more about that. We articulate demands and needs, and then we work on our co-design, our monitoring and evaluation frameworks, and our engagement strategies to apply actions, evaluate, and reflect to upscale and adapt. This is sort of the broader work plan for the program, but we're also doing that in the smaller projects, which becomes an iterative cycle for the whole Walking Cities Lab. Which takes us to the impact that we're expecting to achieve. So from bottom to top, at each of the stages of our program, what we want to get to is to have to reach at least some influence into global discourse shift and policy influence, to have alumni by year 4 in key global institutions and leadership roles, and influencing global urban policy. But we're starting from the ground, as I mentioned earlier. So at the beginning, our impact is going to have a framework for working for transport and initial baselines for the various themes and the regional baselines for the various regions in which we're working. And then from there on, building up to launch fellowship programs, designing them and recruiting for them, and then having onboarded fellows of PhDs and MSCs. And now we're very ambitious. We're looking at postdocs too. And then having an initial stakeholder mapping and outreach, and the launch of our living labs, which Maria Jose is going to tell you a bit about in a moment. So in general, this is organized in an implementation roadmap that for each of the phases have very specific outputs. So we are at the moment of setting up our standards and guidelines for the work packages, the repositories of data that is going to be open and available for the consortium and the community, and having an integration plan for the work packages, and then moving on to synthesis reviews, to creating working groups, to even start looking at additional funding for supporting specific initiatives, and then to have plans for impact, for upscaling, and having flagship outputs for each of the 3 pillars to also lead to some level of sustainability and synthesis. For the living labs, each of the living labs are at the moment during year one establishing their strategic and operational scaffolding. So we're building our institutional structures, which include very important conversations around standards and guidelines for ethics, for collaboration, for quality, setting up protocols and repositories, and having integration plans. And then that's going to move forward to impact, to flagship outputs, to of course an integral research agenda. And then for the advisory board, what we want to do is to sort of work hand in hand to try to identify what are the inputs, the needs, and the outputs, as I was mentioning earlier, and of course to have a sounding board for decisions that we're making and the way that we're structuring the program that is co-produced and sort of has as much as possible different perspectives, which is why we're sort of exploring partnerships with civil society organizations in other contexts. Yeah, so with this, I'm going to stop. Now you have our vision. Now you know who we are. Now you know what we're planning to do. I'm going to hand over to Maria Jose to tell you what we have done so far and what we're planning to do during this first year. And I'm happy to change slides for you. So just tell me when.
Great. Thank you, Daniel, for that very thorough presentation of our plans and wishes. I think this is a very exciting time for us. We started, as Daniel said, as a very little project working with little funding, and now this is like we become grown-ups. And we're already started, and we'll show you our ongoing work and our next steps to welcome you into this growing universe, as Rowan was mentioning, that we're creating a new universe for walking. Next slide, please. So I'm going to show you what's coming and what's on the way already by work package or by pillar of action, as we're calling it, inspired by the VREF call for proposal. So in the knowledge building, we are starting with 5 thematic reviews and strategic research agendas. These are being led by our 5 thematic leads. And the idea is to have a systematic review with a qualitative portion of it so that we know what's out there, that we map the regional and the global knowledge on walking and academic knowledge on walking on this and the intersection with each of the themes. So beyond walkability and walkable places, the idea is to understand more about what has been done in the intersection of care in cities, with walking, the intersection of climate resilience, and what is there about governance and implementation on walking. Then we have 4 local research priorities review, and this is where the living labs come into the equation to understand what is the contextual need, or what are the contextual needs in each of the 4 regions that we're working on. So we'll have a holistic landscape of research from each team, plus a localized regional and in local language research context to establish the plans for the living lab research and give us a strategic guidelines for what should happen regionally in terms of knowledge development, capacity building, and continuing the growth of the communities. We're also mapping the Walking for Transport research landscape in terms of individuals and disciplines that are involved in this process. And that is for us to understand where this research is happening and who is leading it, but also where the actions are already, and advocacy is already developing. Finally, we have a development of the terms of reference for the Startup Grants Generation 1. Daniel already introduced you in our universe of walking, all of the startup grants that came with us to the proposal. And the idea is to have a second generation of startup grants, but for now we're developing the terms of reference of how this should happen. And most of you that are here from the startup grants probably are glad to hear these as well. Next slide. We also have on the way in the pillar of action of capacity building, of next generation capacity building, the development of a dissertation fellowship programs. This is a somehow a continuation of what we had been doing with the Walking Cities Lab, including students from the masters at the GPU to use the data that had been produced and to kind of advance the frameworks that we'd worked on, so that they could also win from the research that was being developed. And now this is becoming a global system through all of our partners in academia. We're also piloting a practice-based learning on walking for transport with international MSc students of UCL, literally right now with Daniel, who is in Colombia, doing it with the Environmental and Sustainable Development master students, and I am doing it in Mexico with the urban economic development students, and understanding how walking understandings of in practice from these master students doing research on new environments, like very concentrated fieldwork in 10 days, changes their understanding of walking, but also how they improve their management of methodologies that are based on walking for transport and urban development, connecting with urban development. We, as Daniel mentioned, we also have on the capacity building dimension the creation of a Walking for Transport Academy, and this is one of the most, or one of all of the very exciting developments that we have in this program. That is the creation of an academy that will have fellowships, practitioner training, stakeholder engagement, and design contests to address a gap that we've encountered. I'm sure that most of you also have felt this absence of persuading people that walking is the last mile, or is not just the last choice or a subpar mode of transport, but actually one of the best if conditions allow. And then for the capacity building, we also have the mentoring of early career researchers, particularly on grant writing for research funding. I think Daniel already mentioned how he's mentoring for continuing the funding and postdoctoral research under the umbrella of the Walking Cities Lab. One of the gaps that we find in academia, and I'm sure most of us next-gen scholars have this issue of funding pending in our minds. So we think that this will help expanding the community, and also to our main goal of to make walking a global priority. And finally, but not less importantly, and this is ongoing, as you can probably see, I've been seeing all of the messages in the chat, but also DMs and so on. It's quite a big splash of a new image and graphic design. The characters are amazing. We need to give Trish, our graphic designer, all of the credit, but particularly Walk21 for driving this change of image that really is a refresher, and feels like we're coming of age for the Walking Cities Lab. So besides the clear new image, we're also advancing through our communications manager, an amazing new online presence, and with Daniel as a host, there's a new podcast that will tell you a bit more in detail, episode by episode, what will be working in the program. There is already one episode out that personally I found really interesting, because it tells you what took us to this, VREF, took VREF to this moment of having a big program on an international research program on walking for transport. You can find, please get the QR codes for our new website as well. This one is in the process of being built. We put to sleep our old image, and this is coming slowly with all the new content, but also it's for you to hear this story of growth from the Walking Cities Lab and the new chapter that we're starting with the WCL. We also have the LinkedIn, and you have the link there and the QR code for you to follow. Next. Then we are also have a presence in the Instagram. I thought I already mentioned the podcast, but I'll do it again. I think I confused the podcast with the LinkedIn. But again, it's super interesting episode. You can find it in Spotify, Apple, and WeTalker, and it will give you a nudge to how this all began through Henrik's voice. Next, please. Okay, so as Daniel mentioned, we have a plan for launching each of the living lengths between November and October. This will be co-hosted with 4 regional in-person events to convene communities of learning and practice in our 4 regions, and launch our living labs in 2026, and perhaps Malta will come early 2027. But also we have two very exciting meetings, one of which VREF is hosting in Gothenburg, and I'm sure most of you and a lot of you have been invited, and we will be participating, and we're very excited to meet you all and hear what you've been working in and connecting with our program that will be in Gothenburg. But we also have a new development. We'll be having a big meeting in London around the 24th of November to convene all of our partners, but also kind of host the European setup. I'm going to invite Jim, who's probably way better at explaining this part of the communities of learning and action. Jim, if you are there to tell us a bit more about the next steps in terms of these big events that we're co-hosting and you're making happen with WOP21.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I just wanted to pause for a second and just congratulate you on all of this work. I mean, you've summarized it so quickly, and yet it's really been a year in the making, and such a huge partnership. And it's just so fantastic to see it laid out so clearly, and see, the plans now emerging and realizing that we're all going to be busy for 4 years, really busy. We, as you know, or many of you will know, we've organized an annual international conference on walking for the last 25 years. We decided this year to take a pause from that conference series, knowing that this was coming, excited about this opportunity, realizing that some of our conferences, particularly recently, we found people have struggled to actually attend the events from different regions. We have a global community now of more than 5,000 people around the world interested in this work. We thought it was a chance where we could actually organize 4 events, as it were, 4 mini WOP21s, if you like, around the world. And these are the dates that we've now set for the weeks where we will make these connections. And this is a perfect opportunity for us to link directly with this project so that we can launch the communities of practice that are part of this project and bring together the practitioners, the politicians, and the advocate groups who are also very much part of this vital community and have been working in these regions for so long. And we're going to connect these to the work that's already happening in Latin America and the Caribbean, for example, that's involving the CAF Bank with UNEP and UN Habitat and many of our partners there. And there's already a community of some nearly 300 people that we're working with there. In Africa, there is the PAPAM project, which is the partnership for the Pan-African Action Plan for Active Mobility. And there's a whole network of countries who are actively developing policies and implementing them across the region, led by UNEP, UN Habitat, and WHO. So we're going to connect in with that community in Ghana. In the Pan-European region, we're going to combine it with a meeting of the Pan-European Partnership. There is already a master plan for walking in that whole region for all those countries in green, 56 countries. And we're going to make sure that this community, this project, connects in with that community as well. And in Asia, particularly in Delhi, working in partnership with the Ragari Foundation, they've already got an ambitious plan to connect with an event in Delhi that they hope to invite over 1,500 people to. So this community of practice, these communities of practice, and this project will be very much sewn in to what's going on already, the people who are already active in these communities. And we very much invite you all to come to the regional one of your choice, the nearest one, and be part of this conversation. And for us, this is an opportunity to also connect it to the Decade of Action for Sustainable Transport that got launched just at the end of last year and gives us 10 years to plan what is the opportunity in these next 10 years for walking. We want to use this moment to ask the community in the different regions to make a plan, as it were, for the decade. And we think that this project is absolutely integral to that. So thank you for the opportunity. I'm delighted we've got dates so quickly and we can announce them today for the very first time. Please put them in your diary and we look forward to meeting you in at least one of these places sometime before the end of the year. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. And to conclude the communities of learning next steps, we're inviting you to join our global community of Walking for Transport by filling this relatively short survey. Will take you not more than hopefully 10 minutes, but do fill it with care. And this will enable us not only to know what you're working in, but also to include you in this process of democratizing knowledge and making it truly global about Walking for Transport. So there's the link. I'll paste the link on the chat as well and the QR code for you to read. And feel free to also ask in the chat if you didn't manage to get the link or the QR code. I think with this, I'll give it back to Daniel. No, sorry. We are also sharing with you this Walking Cities Lab story of how we've been co-producing knowledge for equitable urban mobility for the last 5 to 6 years, more or less. It's a summary of our publications, the methodologies we've developed, and personally find it very useful if you want to navigate different ways of understanding Walking for Transport in terms of engagement with policymakers, advocacy, and generally actionable knowledge. So again, QR code and the link. And I think with this one, I do pass it on back to you, Daniel, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for being here, for holding us with us for so long. I see lots of excitement in the chat, lots of excitement in sort of the faces that I managed to see with my very little sort of screen there. So please feel free to contact us. For those of you who know me, know that I'm terrible with emails, but please do keep trying and get in touch with us, because now we have many ways of being connected with. And what we're looking for is to building this community. Before we kind of open for conversation and for debate, as I mentioned, we have a decentralized leadership, and you already heard from 2 of our work package leads, who are Maria Jose and Jim. But I wanted to take a moment to put a few of my colleagues on the spots for them to tell us a bit about themselves and about how they came to walking. So I'm going to call very undemocratically to some of my colleagues to join. I'm going to do it by word package. So we have, I think Tanu is still with us. I hope she is. Tanu, are you there?
Yes.
Yeah. So very, very simple question for you. Like, how did you come to walking, and sort of tell us a bit about yourself and what you're doing in the Walking Cities Lab. I think that's the not one but 3 questions.
Thanks, Daniel, and great presentation. Kudos to you and Maria Jose. Very shortly, I am from India, and I grew up in a time before Maruti Suzuki came to India in 1986 and completely invaded the Indian cities. And I grew up walking because we would walk a lot. It was safe, it was comfortable, and there was a sense of community and belonging. And I see gradually how eroded that entire lifestyle has become. And now we don't have space whatsoever in the Indian cities, but now we are gradually progressing from small cars to big SUVs, the American standards. We are continuously choked on Indian streets, sitting 2.5 hours easily in traffic jams. And as an urban planner, as an urban transport planner, I feel very frustrated every time I visit home. And I have been working with the topic of gendered mobilities for over 2 decades now, and there is a strong intersection between gendered mobilities and walking, and how it's not prioritized whatsoever in the transport planning agenda, both in global South and North. I live and work in Oslo and across European countries, but I see there is a continuous lack of a focus on walking. So I'm very, very happy and excited to be a part of this first of its kind project and under your very able leadership, Daniel. So clap for you.
Thank you, Tanu. That's way too generous. But yeah, I really appreciate it. Let's move into our work package number 2, which we have Natalia Villamizar, who is one of the colleagues of the work packages. And Natalia, same questions. Tell us a bit about you, how you came to walking, and what are your expectations here? Like what is it that you want to do in the Walking Cities Lab?
So, hi everybody. My name is Natalia Villamizar Duarte. I am based at Newcastle University. Similarly than Tanu, I grew up in a city where walking was the main form of transport. I grew up in Bogota, Colombia, and basically, like, we walk everywhere. We play in the streets. Like, walking was what we did every time, every day, going to college. Like, it was just a way of enjoying the city. I'm an architect, urban designer, urban planning, and I also work on urban policy. And walking was and has been like a very central part of my life. I do not drive. I don't know how to drive. And I always get like this idea of like we are giving the city back to like a device that not only changes the environments we experience, but also change us as a persons. Because I see people when they get in a car, they become a driver. They stop being a pedestrian. They stop being that person that experiences the city and become a driver. So I've always been very interested in understanding how we shape the city. But then I started thinking about the shaping of the city from more the physical perspective as an architect and urban designer. But then I realized that you can't really understand the shaping of the city if you don't understand the social construction of policy and the implementations of those policies. So that is when I became like analyzing the intersection between how we shape policies that at the end shape our urban environments. And between this Walking Cities Lab, my contribution is going to be in 2 aspects. First, I'm going to be kind of developing and testing this knowledge about implementation pathways that will make walking a global transport priority today in policy and in the discourse, because it has been a priority for many people and for a lot of like around the world. Like most people walk. That is the first thing you do. Even if you have a car, you walk. So I think it's a priority, but we don't recognize it as such in policy, and we don't implement that in the way we shape cities through policy. So I will be working on that and just knowledge about implementation of how we can shift that. And also, as Daniel mentioned and Maria Jose said, I will be co-leading with Clemens Cavioli at UCL, the work package 2, which is the next generation capacity. And the aim of this is basically to cultivate the way we think about walking. So in 10 years, and Jim was saying, these 10 years, we have 10 years to think about how we shift to sustainable mobilities. Like what is going to be in 10 years if we start like now, capacity building with early career scholars, with students from bachelor's, master's, and to different levels, to start thinking about walking as a different way of experiencing the city, but also a different way of creating policies for our cities. And that is me. Sorry if it was too long.
Great, thank you, Natalia. I have to make a joke here because my parents joined the call because they wanted to hear me. And they're using my Zoom. So you see Daniel Oviedo which is pointing to the roof, and I have no way of telling them to turn off the camera. So there you go. My family is supporting me, which is kind of nice, very nice. I love them. So gracias por unirse. But then let's go. Let's go on with this one. We have one of our thematic leads which hasn't had the moment to introduce herself. So I want to call on Thaisa Comelli to tell us a bit about who she is and how she came from the very more specific area of climate resilience to walking for transport. So Thaisa.
Thank you, Daniel. It's really a pleasure to be here and to meet everyone. My name is Thaisa Comelli. I'm based at the Bartlett School of Planning. I was born and raised in an unwalkable city. I was born in Brasilia, the capital of Brazil. And so this theme of walkability was always in my mind and part of the way that part of the reason probably why I chose planning as a field to work with. So yeah, it's a really important theme, and I'm happy to work with it through the lenses of climate resilience. So we are developing this theme as a way to connect to key policy agendas within the climate world, which is mitigation and adaptation. As you may know, decarbonization is a big agenda in cities all over the world. And so transport and decarbonization are very common themes. And of course, working towards more walkable cities is a big contribution towards decarbonization. That's the more obvious agenda. But a less obvious agenda is connected to climate adaptation, because as Natalia was mentioning, walking is a way for us to experience the city, to experience public spaces, to meet people. And as our climate changes and as our climate futures unfold, we have different perceptions connected to walking. We face different barriers, but also different opportunities because we start to experience the city in different ways. So that's a very interesting agenda, which we hope to develop as part of this program. So trying to understand co-benefits and trade-offs of introducing infrastructures and soft policy for walking, and how can we contribute simultaneously to mitigation and climate adaptation agendas through the lenses of walking. So I'm really excited to be able to develop this agenda with you. And I'm, of course, very happy to take any inputs and questions, both now and in the future, that you may have. I think I already said that I'm based at the Bartlett School of Planning, but yeah, I've done work with climate resilience in different continents, in different cities, and the urban lab in Ghana is one that I've been closely connected to. So we have been doing work together for a couple of years now. Through some seed funding that happened in the past. So I hope to be connected to that lab initially, and then expand and upscale a little bit the work towards the other labs. Thank you.
Thank you, Thaisa. We want to give at least 15 minutes for people to react and comment. But before that, I want to give the floor to our colleagues from the Living Labs who are going to be spearheading our work in the various regions. So I see Ana Ardila from our Brazil Living Lab who's joined. So Ana, do you want to say a few things about yourself and how we came to walking and your ambition for this program?
Anna, I think you're muted.
There might be some technical issues. We can't hear you. We know you unmuted your.
Hello, are you? Can you listen to me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay.
We can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I was saying that thank you everybody for Daniel for the presentation, and it's nice to see how we are gonna face a high complexity process in these 4 years. I'm a sociologist. I'm from Colombia, but I live in Brazil. I'm professor at the Federal University of Minas Gerais, and I'm working about and studying about walking in related to aging process and intersectional problems, especially gender and race and class. That is a very important subject in Brazil, and because we have a very unequal society. And we are gonna work with many students here in different levels, PhD, master, and graduation. And we hope to integrate more researchers in Latin America. And we are gonna invite you to have a Walking 21 in Belo Horizonte. And we are very happy to have you here. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you, Ana. We also have Luis Frimpong from Ghana. So, Luis, can you tell us a bit about how you came to walking and what the plans are in very generally for the ambitions for Ghana and Sub-Saharan Africa?
You're muted.
Yeah, so thank you for the opportunity, and that was a nice presentation from you, Daniel. Yeah, so my name is Luis Kusi-Frimpong, and I've been working on the Working Cities Lab with Daniel for some years now. We began in Freetown, Sierra Leone, and we've extended our work to Ghana for some time now. So for us, as the Living Lab in Ghana, we've been working on a number of projects on previous VREF projects on walking in Ghana. And this time we will be extending to other parts of Ghana at the one or two cities will be added. And basically we will be looking at walking for women and children, and then how climate issues present challenges for meeting responsibilities at home and both at workplaces, and also how children are able to navigate the working environment to schools. So it fits within the larger context of the caring for cities, which is a central part of this project. And we hope to explore new methodologies and also to fine-tune previous ones that have been used in previous projects in Ghana. So I'm really happy, and we hope that these 4 years will be an interesting period. Yeah, thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much, Luis. I think I'm going to stop there because I'm sure there are quite a few people who want to say something that is not directly part of our program, but not without saying first, thank you to everyone from the consortium who's joined, from our advisory board. I see Sara from Arquitectura Sin Fronteras with us, obviously Bron from OP21 and Lake, quite a few others. I open the mic for people to please raise your hands and tell us what you think, any feedback, any thoughts, anything that you want to add here. I think I should go to Karen to do that, but thank you again for everything. Sorry, overexcited.
I think you said a word there that I think many of us can relate to after this fantastic presentation. Thank you so much, Daniel, Maria Jose, and the rest of the team. Congratulations on a great presentation. I would like to hand over the word first to VREF's scientific advisor, Jane Summerton, just to give her reflection on the presentation. Then we open up the floor for questions. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Very quickly, I'm filling in for David Dindelov, who's our program coordinator. Just a few comments. I'd like to thank the team very much for really excellent presentations consistently across the board. I'd also like to say that besides the ambitious scientific agenda, what we really appreciate at VREF is all the energy and the engagement you bring to this, and your openness in really pulling in lots of different people in the community, you know, the people from VREF, the researchers beyond that, the community of practice. We especially appreciate the engagement also of Walk 21 in that. So we are at VREF also very excited, and we're looking forward to work with you. Good job.
Okay. I think I'll let you take care of the questions, Daniel. So you keep track of the hands and shout out if you need assistance. So
Great.
raise your hands and Daniel will take care of your questions.
Thank you, Corinne, and thank you, Jane, for such nice words. And we're full of energy. Maybe not much sleep, but still lots of energy. So please, if anyone wants to say something, now's the time. We still have a few minutes left in our schedule. So we're very much looking forward to hear your thoughts about our program beyond what's been said already in the chat. Gabriela.
And how are you, Daniel? It's very nice to hear you and everybody. Thank you and good luck with the Walking City Labs. I just want to say that I didn't see anybody from the North America. I'm part of Latin America at Mexico. So if you have any it's a big schedule and big plan, but you can work. We would like to work a little bit with you at ITESO from Mexico. So here we are. Okay, thank you so much, and congratulations for everybody.
Thank you, Gabriela. We are expanding ourselves as quickly as we can. Of course, you're a very close friend to us, to the Open Cities Lab, and I'm sure I will find ways of collaborating with everyone who's interested in doing so with us. Please come to our event in Brazil for the Latin American community, where we are going to be scheming and planning for exciting things coming forward in the following years. So thank you so much.
And must I say, fill our survey as well, so that we can track your work, your research, and so on.
And just to say about North America, and thanks Julie for putting it into the chat. So Julie Carman, who is currently in Montreal, she's one of our mentees for postdoctoral grant funding. So she's there. There is some Latin American presence. There's a North American presence. We are in the Americas, and so thank you, Julie, for that. Sorry that in the rush I didn't manage to include it into the slides, but thanks for joining us. Great. Any other thoughts, comments, questions, statements? Okay.
I think everybody's just overwhelmed into silence, Daniel. So
I have one comment, Daniel.
Yeah,
Since
go ahead.
there is like
Go
almost
ahead,
86 people here, I would really like I would request everyone, if there are case studies or cases or snippets or stories which relate to, poor walking condition, good or great experiments, whatever, just share with us. Drop us an email. Because at the end of the project, we would also very much like to create a repository of stories from across the world on walking. And I'm leading the Caring Cities thematic group. And the idea is caring how we define right now in transport and urban planning is fine, but to expand it, to make it more holistic. And that is the lens through which policymaking should operate. Caring, not environment, not economy, not just social, not just the sustainability lens, but the caring lens. And for that, a kind of creating a repository will be very helpful, because then we can pinpoint, these kind of cases also happen. And then that's why we need this lens. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Tanu. And before our inboxes are flooded, we're going to try to institutionalize this a bit more. So we have a set of surveys that we're going to be sharing to collect this information, but the invitation remains open for you to share what you want with us. You now know our thematic leads. Yeah.
Sorry. So just maybe if we write down the email, the Walking Cities Lab email, so people can send emails with information about as well, local programs, local ideas, local policies in which walking is trying to be become a more important priority in the policy as well. So not only the practices, the strategies from communities, from people, but also what policymakers, what activist groups and other communities are doing in every place. It will be very important for us to start mapping this diversity of policies, programs, communities, actions, strategies, etc.
Yes, I think we used to have a Gmail account. Yeah, there we go. Maria Jose has shared it, so we can look into that. Thank you, everyone who has something to share. Please do so through our email. Now we have many hands and only 10 minutes, so I ask you to please keep your. I know there's excitement, but please bring your inputs. Bronwyn.
I will be super quick. People know how much I love walking, but I'm utterly delighted that we're going to be involved in this project, that you've set it up so beautifully, and it's great to see all these different faces and names and people coming on board for this work. So looking forward to connecting with everybody over the next few years as we build this momentum and use it to build outwards as well. I always want to connect into the policy to make that change on the ground. And I know that we're going to do that with this consortium. So thank you again, VREF, and looking forward to walking with all of you at some time in the next 4 years.
Thank you so much. Nancy.
Hello. Thank you, Danielle and the team, for the presentations. I was just curious, for the PhD and masters that you're thinking about, will the cases have to be in the cities, the labs that you have selected?
Not at all. Not at all. Thank you, Nancy. And can I ask? Yeah, thank you for muting your mic. No, Nancy, actually, that's a very important question. We are open for collaborations with all institutions in all cities, not only where we are. As we mentioned, the living labs are sort of our initial footing for long-term engagement, but everywhere else is welcome. We're exploring other cities. If you have research that you want to connect with us, I guess what needs to be said here is that resources are limited, but we are very entrepreneurial, so we're always happy to explore opportunities for further funding and to collaborate further with everyone. So yeah, all cities welcome, and I know that you have interest in other parts of Sub-Saharan Africa that need to be represented, and that's part of our mission of democratizing knowledge and sort of reducing some of the gaps that we have at the moment in representation. So thank you so much for that question, Nancy. Karen.
Oh, thank you, Danielle. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for this wonderful meeting. I'm so happy to see the faces of friends, workers, and hearts celebrating this gathering. As I listened to you, I thought that this gathering is like a party where all the participants can be dancing at the same time in different parts of the world. Because working is a daily practice that transcends geographical location, age, gender. So for me, the opportunity of thinking about working has been a transformative experience that challenges me every day to consider the co-creation of the places we inhabit, so that we may live better each day. So I feel nothing but joy for the 4 years that lie ahead with you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Karen. Yeah, I think we all resonate with that feeling. Thank you. Leticia.
Hi, everyone. I just want to congratulate, and I'm very happy and excited to be part of it. And I just want to make like a suggestion. I know it's very difficult how we are already organized and all the topics and all, but when I see like this amount of people from the Global South, if we can have some working groups of some other thematic areas, that would be very interesting for us. Because I was thinking if we can have like a South-South collaboration group within this group, because I'm very curious to exchange more with the other countries that have the same challenges and all, and straight collaboration and exchange. So I think it's a great opportunity if we can have that. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Leticia, and we're delighted to have you on board as part of the program. Yes, of course we can start. Actually, we didn't have time to go through it, but we have already like working groups built into the program. And of course, as part of our work stream 3 or third pillar of communities, we want to do it first regionally, but of course we are trying to become that platform that I was saying at the beginning for connecting and collaboration, and also reiterating the decentralization issue. This is by no means a cult of personality or anything of the like. We are quite a few already, but we can always be more, and there are space, yeah, for everyone. So thank you for that. Juan Pablo, finally.
Thank you, Daniel. So yeah, I'm Juan Pablo Benitez. I'm from Paraguay, and I work as a transport consultant for IDB at the moment. But yeah, I think that just as the team, how do you envision collaboration with like multilateral organizations, so that we can be aware a bit of like how we can contribute more in the future. I know that there is already some work going on, but like additional work in the future. And then also with a bit of like a distance from my current role, just as someone that is from the sector and it's observing what is going through with the lab and all the work you guys are doing, how we can be sort of like actively informed of the things that are going on. If beyond the institutional measures, it's going to be sort of like a newsletter that's going to be sent or anything like that, that will keep us on track of what you guys are doing and maybe be aware of like new opportunities to contribute. Yeah, those are some of my questions.
Great, thank you, Juan Pablo. Well, as you know, we have been collaborating with IDB for a while with a few colleagues in this sort of broader institution, especially on the knowledge end, but we are currently exploring ways of more directly connecting. I cannot say much because it's not my decision, it's institutional processes, but we have already a very strong knowledge base. So we're going to be building on the knowledge, at least with the Inter-American Development Bank, but that applies also to the African, Asian development banks and sort of the European Commission, to build on that knowledge, to incorporate that more strongly. And part of democratizing the knowledge is as well sort of not staying only within the realm of the sort of peer-reviewed academic literature, but also many of what is considered this gray literature that comes from institutions such as the IDB, CAF, and other of our partners are very important. So and also we'll have their input, hopefully within the advice report and sort of the strategic direction. And then I forgot introducing, and she introduced herself. So Camila Camila Casas is managing our comms strategy, and I think she's putting some inputs in the chat. So we have already a few channels, as well as our podcast, which is going to be structured around the structure of the program. So we're going to be going region by region, speaking with the living labs and practitioners. So we're going to have different moments for you to also know what we have. VREF has also its own newsletter in some ways of moving, sort of sharing information. So please keep an eye on our channels and VREF's channels. That's going to be probably the most direct way of communicating. So with this, and with only a couple of minutes to end, I wanted to hand over to Henrik for closing this wonderful event and this celebration of walking and walking for transport. And we want to thank you all for welcoming us in our new incarnation to this community. So Henrik, over to you. And thank you very much again to VREF for all the support.
Thank you. Wow, this has been really a fantastic launching event. So such a great start of this journey. Just wanted to say a few words. It's been so inspiring and so stimulating to be here over the 1.5 hours today, and looking very much forward to all the knowledge produced, of course, in the living labs and your thematic streams, and a lot of research and knowledge. That's what it's about. But it's beyond that. I'd like to just reflect a bit on the community of learning aspect, because at VREF we have seen over the years that the most successful research programs that we have been involved in have also been great communities, communities of learning, communities of practice. So there are 4 keywords here. First keyword is to become a go-to place. I think you are already that, or go-to places with the living labs, but the Walking Cities Lab as a whole, as a go-to place for knowledge and research on walking as a mode of transport. Second one is a lighthouse. So become a guiding light for people who would like to join this journey of creating, let's say, the knowledge base as such, but also how you become users of knowledge. So the lighthouse on that. And the third one is community, of course. We've been talking, a lot of people have been talking about community today, and that's also one keyword. But what you do with the community is also that you create a movement for research, but also movement for advocacy. So those are the 4 sort of quality aspects that we pay a lot of attention to. And I think you have such a great potential. We've seen this today. We've seen it in your proposal, and we've seen it when we talk to you and the consortium and the team. So we have great expectations. I should not say no pressure, because there is some pressure here, of course, expectations and pressure. But I feel, from my side, I feel quite confident that you will be successful within the 4 years, and hopefully also within the first year. And we've seen already today some success in creating this atmosphere. So I must say, it's been a great experience over the last 90 minutes, and so promising. So thanks for that, and again, congratulations to all of you for creating this. I think I say this on behalf of my colleagues at VREF, but feel free, Karin, Jane, David, if you want to add anything. I see Jane is shaking her head. Karin is satisfied. You're pleased with today? So
Very.
with that, I think we wrap up. Feel free to put on your cameras and say bye-bye. Yeah? Great. So, auf Wiedersehen, as we say in German.
Definitely.
Bye-bye. See you again.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Hej då, as we say in Swedish.
Yes, hej då, as we say in Swedish.
Hej då.
Hasta luego.
Hej då!
Muchas gracias.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Bye.